Hey guys, welcome back to more I Don't Work Here Lady stories. In this story, a Karen claims that I work at Home Depot, despite only being a customer, and slaps me for not obeying her demands. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into today's stories. And the first one is titled, No, Get Me Your Manager, also posted on r/IDontWorkHereLady. So I was a witness to this, but it was absolutely brilliant. I'm remembering it, so it's not verbatim, but whatever, I still want to use it on someone. So at a Target a few years ago, this lady, let's call her Karen, is yelling at a girl wearing a blue-green polo and black pants. I think she was a server at a nearby restaurant or something, demanding the girl helps her. The girl keeps trying to say, "Ma'am, I don't work here. I don't know." Well, Karen gets all pissy and starts complaining this girl out and finally says the dreaded words, "Get me your manager." The girl says again, "I still don't work here." Karen has none of it and demands again, and the girl finally snaps and says, "I demand to see your manager." Let me tell you, this girl could out Karen the most Karens of Karens with her tone. Karen stops and says, "What? You heard me. Get me your manager now. I won't be treated like this by someone like you. Manager." Karen, "But I don't work here." "That doesn't matter. Go get your manager. Go, go, go." And starts kind of barking at her and stepping forward with each bark. Karen does this weird stumble backwards, looking terrified, and finally turns and wells off, /runs/trots off. I'm not sure, she wasn't actually running off to call her boss. All I can say though is, this girl perfectly turned the tables, and it was super effective. I just hope she never uses her Karen powers for evil. And yeah guys, I guess if you cannot beat the Karens, then you need to become a Karen, at least of some sort, to beat them. And by the way guys, if you still enjoy the I Don't Work Here Lady stories that are not so common anymore nowadays, please let me know in the comments and like the video, because I really appreciate your feedback. Either way, the next one is titled, Entitled Karen Claims I Work at Home Depot. I've read and heard about people being mistaken for employees before, thinking it was amusing, and usually ended up in a few awkward laughs. However, when the time came that I was mistaken, things ended in a less so civil way. So I'm a contractor, specifically a plumber, and often must nip to Home Depot or other similar supply stores for extra parts. On this particular day, I was in Home Depot for some pipes and fittings for a job I had the next morning. To defend the Karen in this situation, I was wearing my uniform consisting of a tool belt loaded with my basic tools and scruffy work clothes that had seen better days. However, this is how many of the people shopping in Home Depot look, and the Home Depot uniform itself is bright orange, so I would have thought it was identifiable when compared to my faded blue work shirt and canvas pants. Anyway, there I was in the plumbing section comparing different pipe joints and checking my phone for measurements I'd written down earlier when this woman comes over. She looked to be in her late 40s, well dressed in that suburban mom way, carrying a small purse and looking increasingly frustrated. I was already a little put off because initially I felt her walk behind me and then stop. I assumed she might have been looking at something on another shelf until I heard her clear her throat with an ahem type of cough. I turned around. "Sorry, am I in your way?" "No," she replied with an eye roll, muttering, "Idiot," under her breath, but loud enough that I could hear it. Now I was confused. Okay? What else was I supposed to say right now? I had no clue what her problem was. She stared at me for a while, I guess waiting for me to read her mind and find the perfect solution to the problem I didn't know existed. Her arms were crossed and she kept sighing dramatically like I was the biggest inconvenience in the world. After about 30 seconds of this awkward staring contest, I got a little creeped out and just started walking away towards the checkout area. "Hey," she yelled, her voice echoing through the store. "Where do you think you're going?" I stopped and turned around. "What do you want?" I asked, trying not to sound too rude, but probably failing given how bizarre this whole interaction had already been so far. "Don't be so rude. Why aren't you asking what help I need?" she demanded, stepping closer to me with this expectant look on her face. That's when she launched into this rant about how people these days didn't want to work anymore, calling me lazy and unprofessional. A few other customers had stopped what they were doing and were watching us now, which made the whole situation even more embarrassing. I could feel my face getting red. "I'm sorry, but what exactly have I done wrong here?" I asked, cutting her off rant mid-sentence. She stared at me with this incredulous look, her face turning red before stammering that she'd just go find someone else who actually cared about customer service. She stormed off towards the paint section, muttering more insults loud enough for everyone to hear. I got a few sympathetic looks from people around me, and one older guy even shook his head and said, "Some people, huh?" I just shrugged it off and tried to carry on getting what I needed, but the whole thing had left me feeling pretty rattled. The situation was obviously off-putting, so I tried to hurry up with the rest of my shopping, grabbing the last few items on my list and making my way to the checkout lines as quickly as possible. I just wanted to get out of there and put this weird encounter behind me. But as I was walking towards the front of the store, Karen came charging around the corner from the paint aisle, moving with purpose and looking even more agitated than before. I instinctively stepped back when I saw her coming. "Look, I don't know what your problem is, but I couldn't find anyone else to help me," she stated, stopping right in front of me, close enough that I could smell her perfume. "So you're going to have to do it." I was still completely confused at this point because she hadn't actually said what she needed help with or made it clear that she thought I worked there. For all I knew, she was just some crazy person who harassed random shoppers. "Paintbrushes," she said, tapping her foot impatiently. "I need to know where they are, and I need to know right now. I've been looking for 20 minutes. And then it finally clicked. She thinks I work here. "Ma'am, I don't work here," I said as calmly as I could, even managing a small smile because I figured this was when she would apologize awkwardly and we would both laugh about the misunderstanding. Instead, she took a step back like I had just told her the earth was flat, placing her hand on her chest with this theatrical gasp. "Don't lie to me," she started yelling. "You're discriminating against me. I saw you helping that other person." She pointed at some random guy who was just minding his own business in the electrical section. "You would help him, wouldn't you? But not me." I tried explaining to her once more that I genuinely was not a staff member, that I was just another customer trying to buy some plumbing supplies. I even offered to help her find an actual employee, but she would not hear any of it. She just kept ranting about discrimination and customer service and how I was a liar. "Look, I really don't work here," I said, raising my voice to try to get through to her. "I'm just wearing a blue shirt. The employees wear orange." "See?" I gestured to my obviously non-Home Depot clothing. "Don't lie to me, just show me where the paintbrushes are. It is your job." At this point, I was done with her. I tried being nice, I tried being reasonable, and nothing was working here. So I decided to just leave my basket right there on the floor and come back another day when hopefully this lunatic wouldn't be around. "Where do you think you're going?" she screamed as I started walking away, then she grabbed my arm. Actually grabbed it and yanked me backwards toward her, twisting the skin painfully. I'm not a small guy, but she caught me off guard here and nearly made me lose my balance. "Let go of me," I said, pulling my arm away. At this point, I was genuinely scared. If she was willing to put her hands on a stranger in public, who knows what else she might do? Finally, a Home Depot employee spotted what was happening and came jogging over. It was a young woman, maybe early 20s, wearing the distinctive orange apron. "Excuse me, what's going on here?" she asked, looking between me and Karen with obvious concern. Karen immediately launched into her whole story again, explaining that I was an employee who refused to help her find paintbrushes. The actual employee looked at me with raised eyebrows, taking in my obviously non-Home Depot appearance. "Sir, do you work here?" she asked me directly. "No, I absolutely don't," I replied. "I'm just trying to buy some plumbing supplies." The employee nodded and turned to Karen. "Ma'am, this gentleman doesn't work for us. I can help you find what you're looking for, though." "That's impossible," Karen shrieked. "You are all in on this together. She was helping other customers. I saw him." She pointed at me again, getting more worked up by the second. "He's the real employee." "You're probably just some trainee who doesn't know anything." The employee sighed and pointed to her name tag and orange apron. "Ma'am, I've worked here for 3 years. This is what our uniform looks like. That gentleman is a customer, just like you." But Karen was beyond reason at this point. She was practically hysterical, and I could see people stopping their shopping to stare at the commotion. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed a store manager walking in our direction, probably alerted by all the shouting. Before he could reach us, though, Karen completely lost it. She stepped towards me and slapped me across the face real hard. I stumbled backwards, more from the shock than the actual impact, bringing my hand up to my stinging cheek. I could not believe that she had actually hit me. I was provoked. She immediately started screaming at everyone who was staring. He was being discriminatory. I felt threatened. The manager broke into a run when he saw what happened, pulling out his radio and calling for security. Karen seemed to realize that things had gotten out of hand because she started backpedaling. "That's not necessary," she said, suddenly sounding less confident. "I'm fine, everything is fine." "It is not for you," the manager said grimly. 2 security guards arrived within a minute and positioned themselves near Karen, who was still ranting about customer service and discrimination. Another customer had apparently called 911 because they could hear sirens outside. "Where are the brushes?" Karen kept yelling even as the police officers walked into the store. "Make that employee help me, this is ridiculous." "I don't work here," I shouted back, my patience completely gone now. The police officers quickly assessed the situation, with the manager and employee explaining what they had witnessed. One officer tried to calm Karen down, but she was still worked up and kept gesturing wildly with her hands. Then she made her second biggest mistake. As one of the officers stepped closer to try to talk to her, she lashed out and kicked him in the chin. It was not a gentle tap either. I heard the officer grunt in pain and step back. Karen froze when she realized what she had done. The color drained from her face as both officers immediately switched into arrest mode. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for assault," the second officer said, pulling out his handcuffs and moving towards her. The security guard stepped aside as the officer took control of the situation. "You don't understand," Karen wailed as they handcuffed her. "He started it. He wouldn't help me. This is all his fault." But the officers were not interested in her excuses. They read her rights while she continued to rant about discrimination and customer service. Eventually, they had to escort her outside because she wouldn't stop yelling and was disturbing other customers. After they took statements from me, the employee, the manager, and a few witnesses, one of the officers asked if I wanted to file a report about the assault. I said yes. I mean, she hit me in the face. That's not something you just let slide. They explained that they would need me to come to the station later to fill out some paperwork. The whole process took about an hour, and by the time everything was sorted out, I was exhausted. The manager was incredibly apologetic. Even though none of this was the store's fault, he gave me a $25 gift card and said they'd be reviewing their security procedures. He also mentioned that Karen would be banned from the store, though he didn't know if it would apply to other locations too. And well, about 2 months later, I got to know through a friend that Karen had pleaded guilty to simple assault and disorderly conduct. She got a fine and some community service hours. Not exactly the harshest punishment in the world, but at least there were some consequences. I've been back to that Home Depot a few times since then, and thankfully I haven't run into any similar situations. Most of the employees there know me now, since I'm in pretty regularly for work, and they've all been great. I still wear my work clothes when I shop there. I'm not gonna change my routine because of one crazy person. Looking back, I think the whole thing could have been avoided if Karen had just looked at what I was wearing or asked politely if I worked there instead of assuming and then getting aggressive about it. But some people just are not wired to be reasonable, I guess. And yeah guys, if you like the I Don't Work Here Lady stories, please don't forget to like the video and post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support me. The next one is another I Don't Work Here Lady story that is titled "You Smell Like Your Work, So You Must Work Here." So I'm the pitmaster at a local barbecue restaurant. Uniform is black pants and either a black or gray t-shirt with the restaurant name on the front. After work, I often stop by Walmart to go grocery shopping, as it is on my way home. Well, one day, while I was in the bakery getting hoagie rolls for dinner, she appears. Now, she had the typical Karen look and she looked mad, and she spotted me. She opened up with, "Finally someone who effing works here." I of course ignored her and kept on with my shopping. Well, she didn't like that and rammed her cart into mine and started yelling, "Don't you effing ignore me, you lazy dude. I need you to get me a damn cake decorated." I looked up at her, looked down at my black t-shirt with the restaurant name that is very distinct from Walmart, looked back up at her, looked down at my shirt and said, "I don't work here." And then I pulled my card away and turned to leave. She kept yelling, "Yes you do. You smell like you work here," and grabbed my arm. I pushed her off of me and told her to F off, lady. I don't work here. It's not my fault you're too stupid to read my shirt or know that employees here wear a blue vest. She started following, yelling obscenities at me until the manager came over to see what was going on. She of course demanded that I be fired, to which the manager replied that I didn't work there. And they started going back and forth on it. The manager waved me away, so I went back to shopping. A little while later, I'm getting ready to check out and I see her still standing in the bakery yelling at the manager about how I pushed her, that I needed to be fired, that I was rude, and so on and so forth. At this point, I see 2 police officers come in. They have a quick chat with the manager and escorted her out of the building. She was screaming about suing the whole time. And the next one is a crazy malicious compliance story. Backstory: this is another story about Sam and Murat. My manager Sam is extremely chill and an outstanding leader. His manager Murat is a stickler for the rules. I work as an infrastructure and configuration manager and happen to be one of the more expansive resources on the project from my domain. So this story takes place in January 2023. The company was undergoing some restructuring, and most of our contracts included a last in first out LIFO clause by default. So when I joined in March 2022, I took a 10% pay cut to remove the LIFO clause from my contract because I was seeking job stability. Although I was still earning more than I did in my previous job, it was only 20% more instead of 30%. Story: as the infrastructure manager, I'm responsible for maintaining all the product licenses the project uses. One of these product licenses requires a digital signature to function. Typically, such tasks require the use of service accounts which are owned by users. When someone leaves the organization, their service accounts are automatically transferred to their manager. Unfortunately, service accounts cannot have digital signatures, so I had to use mine in this case. The product activation process involves using the corresponding digital signature certificate DSC. Since I already had a DSC for tax purposes, I decided to reuse it instead of obtaining a separate one. You have to understand, in India, DSCs are encrypted and require a one-time password (OTP) from my mobile number every time they are used. This mobile number must be associated with my national ID, AADHAAR, as that is how most encryption services work in India. Sam was on vacation, his first in 5 years. Apart from taking a one-day leave in 2018 when he moved from India to Europe, he had never even taken a sick day before. He also recently got married, and for his honeymoon he took a 2-month vacation to travel all over Europe with his new wife. In his absence, Murat was overseeing the project. Management asked Murat to cut 15% of his workforce. If you've read my previous posts, you would know that Murat was not pleased with me. So the inevitable happened. I was called into a meeting with Murat and HR. Murat asked me to voluntarily resign, or else I would be let go. This is a tactic companies in India often use, as getting fired is considered a much bigger deal than simply losing a job. It's a cultural thing, I suppose. Being fired carries a stigma that most people want to avoid. And also, just to quickly chime in here, I think India, or at least I would imagine, has pretty solid worker right policies, especially when it comes to office environments. However, it could be totally off here, but I think that is also one of the reasons. Either way, HR usually tries to persuade people to resign voluntarily so that it doesn't become public knowledge that they were fired. This tactic often works well, as resigning saves the company from having to pay 3 months' salary, which they would owe if they were to lay off an employee. However, I knew better, so I refused his request. Murat was quite taken aback by this. Since I'd called his bluff, he had to double down to show that he meant business. By the end of the day, I received my termination email with instructions on how to return company property I had. Well, here's the malicious compliance I talked about. I replied to the email asking to schedule the return of the laptop promptly, as I needed to leave the city for a few days. Fake excuse, by the way. So my objective was to have them pick up my laptop from my place and format it as soon as possible. This will be important later. By the end of the week my laptop was picked up. I had already backed up a copy of my DSC, so there were no issues on my end. Fast forward to mid-February and there was an issue with the product. A support ticket was raised and the support team wanted to upgrade to the next version, as this was a known bug that had been resolved in the next version. The product was used once a week to create a weekly report, but no one really looked at it except for Sam, who was still on vacation. So its absence was not likely to be noticed for at least a full month. The end of the month report would bring it to upper management's attention. Now, support SOP requires a license check, hence it required decryption of the existing license. Long story short though, I received the call asking for the DSC and OTP, and I rejected. Murat eventually was informed to ask the support team to provide a new license. The product support team informed him that they could not provide a new license without the company purchasing one. The license cost for this product was $200,000. At this point, Murat decided that they could live without the report. He mostly handled the team side of the project, so he was not really aware of the impact of this report. Sam returned from vacation at the end of February. By the first week of March, he noticed the missing weekly report and promptly called me. I informed him that Murat had fired me. Sam was quite perplexed, to say the least. Unlike Murat, he knew that the current license needed my DSC to work, so he asked if my DSC was available. I told him that my laptop had a copy, but it was taken. He checked the system and sure enough the laptop had been formatted. He asked me if there was any way to resolve the issue. I informed him that even if there were a way, I couldn't help him without being an employee. He asked me to wait for a few days. There's a quarterly meeting that takes place in the middle of every third month, attended by the CEO and top brass. At the March meeting, everyone noticed a missing report. The CEO asked why this important project was missing the report. Sam informed him that there were about 90 people on the call, that a key person had been let go, and the report could not be prepared without spending $200,000 on a new license. Now, I heard the recording of this call after rejoining, so I'll share the relevant conversation below. CEO, is this related to the layoff? Sam, yes. CEO, why wasn't this person's work backed up? Why was he on the LIFO list if he was so key? Sam, he was not on the LIFO list. Murat jumps in. He joined less than a year ago. He must be on that list. CEO, let's discuss this offline after the call. I know what transpired in the offline meeting, but 2 days later I received a call from the head of HR offering me my job back. I asked for the following: a 100% raise and promotion to next level. Out of LIFO, obviously, permanent work from home mentioned in contract, I keep the termination payout, since it'll be counted as a new job in my profile, a joining bonus, 20% of annual salary. I joined back at the 3rd week of March. I received a brand new laptop within 30 minutes of joining, hand delivered at my home by someone from IT in my city. It took me 10 minutes to decrypt the license using my backed up DSC, 30 minutes to upgrade the product to next version. By the end of lunch, the CEO had the report in hand. My new promoted role offers a 60% increase in my medical insurance amount, a take-home company car, option to purchase company stock, and lots of other upgrades. I personally thanked Murat on my first week for the promotion and recognition by CEO in a team-wide call. The same 90 people minus the top brass and CEO. And now OP clarified some things to make it more understandable. Well, it's not at all common or accepted to use a personal DSC for such an important company asset. The product company was undergoing migration of their encryption scheme and was temporarily using the government-certified encryption scheme. So once their migration was completed, we were supposed to obtain a new updated license that had the new encryption for free. I was meaning to do that, but with my workload simply didn't find the time. Basically, since it was working fine, it was not a priority. The company did not rehire me with that seemingly enormous payout for the license dependency. And yes, that was a dependency, but had I been a crappy worker worthy of getting fired, they would have paid the 200k instead. Sam wanted me back, hence I was hired back. I have a lot of proprietary knowledge and overall a great resource. Also, Murat is the brother of the wife of a senior board member. I still work with him in the project and so does Sam. It's one of those cons of life that you accept and move on. He is pissed with anyone who is not licking his boots. Over time, I've done a lot for the project and he now understands how valuable of a resource I am. He has stopped trying to kick me out. And the last one will be a story from r/IDontWorkHereLady and it is titled "It Happened at Target." Of course, I was not dressed like an employee of any sort. I was deep in shopping mode, holding a ceramic jewelry dish that was on clearance up to my eye level, gazing at it while slowly spinning it. An older lady approached me and asked me where some dumb crap was. Having read enough posts from this sub, I decided I didn't want to get into a debate about whether or not I actually worked there, so instead I went into full Colin Robinson mode. I said I was happy to help her. I patiently explained that if she downloads the Target app, selects this location as her default store, does a search for the item and filters the results for pickup today, when she opens the item page it will show the aisle number. I was droning on a bit and I started to explain how the aisles are arranged alphanumerically when the lady suddenly backed away and was quickly walking away from me without saying thank you, so I yelled out, "You're welcome!" And yeah guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I will see you again tomorrow.